Hi there, my name is Aaron Short and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is Tuesday, September the 28th. I feel like I've got jet lag because it's 1 o'clock and I usually go live at 4. And the reason is that today's guest is in Germany, I believe. So we brought it forward a bit and I'm interested to see who's in the chat today. Probably a lot of Brits here today because of the earlier time. But without further ado, I'll bring our guest straight on. This is Rich. How you doing, Rich?
Hey, I'm doing good.
You are in Germany, right? Whereabouts are you exactly?
I am in Germany, yes. I'm in Saarland. I'm in a town called St. Wendel, which is, if you know where Frankfurt is, and if you know where Luxembourg is, I'm kind of in the middle. So it's like...
I don't know where those places are. I'll look at a map later.
It's officially like the middle of Europe. Like I can get to Paris in a train in 2 hours. So it's quite a nice location.
Very cool.
By the way, I'm getting some echo here. I don't know if anybody else watching is getting echo.
I hear no echo.
I'm hearing myself 10 seconds after I talk.
You are?
Yeah.
But you weren't when we did the test run, right?
No.
Oh. Do you want to go out and come back in again?
Okay.
Let's try it.
Shall I hang up and come back?
I'll hang up on you. Enjoy it again. Wow. So we did the test and it was fine, and I haven't changed anything since. Maybe his computer has the volume on. Let's see. Are you sure you're not listening to a stream from YouTube on your computer or your iPhone or something?
Try that.
Hello, testing. I can hear you.
Yeah, I think that worked.
Okay.
So
no one else.
Good.
No
that
one
was
else.
A very professional start, wasn't it?
I tell you, this live stream thing, I've been doing it for a long time now. And then yesterday we had problems with our third guest microphone. And then even when you do the test and you go live like we did today, and you've got a very professional rig there can still be problems. But that's why it's live and that's why people like it. So that's fine.
That's the beauty of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, ask me where I'm from again, and I'll do it in a much wittier, pithier way.
Well, this is weird because I'm from Suffolk, England, and I'm currently broadcasting from New York City. And you are in Germany, but you're clearly not from Germany originally. So where are you from originally?
9. I'm not from Germany originally. I'm from the West Midlands in England. So I've not quite traveled as far as you have. I've just got across the English Channel, whereas you've crossed the Atlantic. But yeah, originally born and bred in Herefordshire in the West Midlands in England. And I've been in Germany on and off now for the past 15 or so years, I would say.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that because this interview is as much for me as the viewers. So in case you don't know, I'll tell you the backstory how we met. So the last NAMM show that I went to, the last one they had in Anaheim, I was hanging out quite a bit with Henning. And Henning's got a great YouTube channel and we did some videos together. And I'm pretty sure Henning introduced me to you. I think we were at the Synergy booth and you were there. And I got talking to you via Henning. And I heard you told me you were at the Hughes and Kettner booth and to go and check that out. So I went up there and checked that out. Where was it, upstairs or downstairs? I can't remember. But I went and checked that booth out.
It was in the weird back building. You know, the new building, which is like up the escalators and 10 minutes walk that way.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, but I was there with H&K and you were with Henning, and yeah, you were at Synergy, which is the Boutique Amps distribution booth. Yeah. I remember, and I was down there one morning just to hang out, just to see a few people and to chat and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where we met. And of course, NAMM 2020 was the last NAMM show that was actually allowed to happen. Of course, we would have all got the chance to meet in January this year again, but it was cancelled for obvious reasons.
And now we're all doing it virtually on live streams, which I've got to say, though, the live streams have been really great for me and my channel and as well. Maybe there's some opportunities that came through live streaming that wouldn't have come through going to NAMM and vice versa.
Yeah, you do so many live streams. Like I check out your channel and watch a few of them. You do a lot of performances, you do interviews, you're really on it. I'm really impressed.
I love it. And the gig, I mean, today is about you. I'm going to be on your channel. You can interview me on your channel. We agreed in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And also the as soon as lockdown started, I was able to get people like Chris Martin, Larry Fishman, Lloyd Baggs on. It was a good kind of downtime to do that. NAMM is great because you meet a lot of people, but everyone's really busy as well. So yeah, that was a good, one good thing that came out of that. But as far as what I know about you is that's kind of it. We met at NAMM. You were really nice to me. I did a review for Hughes and Kettner. Then I heard you moved to BluGuitar, and I'm a big fan of Thomas. I always speak to Thomas at the NAMM show. So that was really cool that you did that. And that's all I know. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wind the clock back and ask you about you and who you are and what music you play and different jobs you've had and bands you've played in, all this kind of stuff. People that are watching live, I'll just say hi to them, and then they're welcome to ask questions as well. And we'll go into a bit about the industry and music in general. And then, like I said, Rich also has his own YouTube channel, so I'll put a link to that in the description and the chat. Subscribe to him, and hopefully channel. It is fantastic. You just hit 1,000 subs, right? And I think I'll be on there in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll flip this around, and you can ask me about my life in music. That'd be great. And we'll do a whole thing. But yeah, let's just say hi to the people in the chat. Philip Watson here was here first. Good job, Phil. And Rosanna is here. She's in the UK and she's moderating today. Thanks, Rosanna. Your friend and mine, Pooh Ninja.
Yeah, the ninja. Such thick, rich content. What's he talking about?
I don't know. I never know quite what he's talking about.
Hello, podcast. Yeah, I know what that means. Yeah, okay.
What? He always confuses me, so let's not change that. There's no echo.
He's on it, but the Hello podcast thing refers to the Catpick Friday show that I do with Vlad from Catpick Studios. At the end of that, we say bye podcast because we're funny or not, and I guess he watches that and he.
Well, that is a podcast as well, right? That's a podcast and a YouTube stream.
Yeah, is this uploaded to Spotify or Podbean?
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing
YouTube?
that. I'm just doing YouTube for now. Yeah, maybe I'm missing out there.
Okay.
Sergio says hello. Good to see you. Patty Smith in Suffolk, UK, and Bernard Smith in Suffolk, UK. Great. All right. So the first question I ask everyone on here: where are you from originally, and what first got you into music?
Well, as I alluded to a few minutes ago, I was born and raised in Herefordshire in the West Midlands of England. Nobody who's not from around there will be familiar with Herefordshire, so I always tell them, if you imagine the UK, picture the map of that, picture Birmingham, one of the biggest cities in the centre of England, picture Wales, the country on the west side. There's kind of a nothingness in the middle of those two areas, and that's where I come from. It's like nice, leafy, green countryside, you know, lots of farming. Actually, the region where I come from, around the Ledbury area, is the centre of the UK cider industry. So ciders like Bulmers are made there, stuff like that. So drinking was a feature early on, and I originated there. And I first got into music through my parents, who were children of the 60s and had, thankfully, a very good taste in music, and they integrated me into that straight away. Neither of them were really musicians themselves, although my dad played in bands and projects when he was younger. And they played music for me from the Beatles to Elvis to all the psychedelic stuff, going up to about the 70s. And they stopped, I think, when disco and bands like ABBA came in. So I got kind of rock and roll through to kind of psychedelic and rock and a bit of prog. And that was about it. And that was when I first got into music. That was my introduction to it, really. And I'd always been really drawn to music as a person, I would say. I've always been kind of a very rhythmic person. I always wanted to play drums as a kid. Never got the chance to do that, unfortunately, but always wanted to play drums. And I got a few guitar lessons when I was about 6 or 7. Then the teacher got pregnant, so they stopped. And I picked the guitar up again when I was about 13 or 14, taught it all to myself, started playing stuff like Rage Against the Machine and Nirvana, and the rest is history, really. Fast forward 20 odd years and here I am talking to you.
So were you in, like, growing up, did you form bands and things like that, and like in your teenage years?
Although there were not many kind of rock and metal music aficionados at our school. So when I was kind of a teenager in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was all pop and stuff like that. No one was really into the kind of bands like Green Day or Rage Against the Machine, which me and my friend Dan idolized. And it was always the two of us playing and making music together and forming bands and doing covers and writing our own stuff and playing power chords and buying distortion pedals. It was kind of the two of us against everybody else, which is sort of what a band is. And we never made it onto the big stage or anything like that. We never really toured. We recorded a few things because Dan was kind of a computer whiz, and This was kind of in the days where you could create your own free websites on like, what was the name of the free websites back then? Like 2yard.com or something. So we had like straightnochasers.2yard.com because our band was Straight No Chasers and stuff like that. So we had a website, but
MySpace.
we never made a proper record. We never toured. It was before MySpace.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There was something before
That was
MySpace?
how good Dan was with computer. There was something before MySpace, and we were that something. It's just a shame that we never blew up. But yeah, that's where we started. And I went to uni in Manchester and played with some people there, but again, never got into anything super serious.
Which uni was it?
Study music, Salford.
Salford. I think I applied to there.
I always tell people I studied in Manchester, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's a great city, the jewel of the north." And then they say, "Where did you study?" And I say Salford, and they're like, "Ah, crap." No, but Salford is a good uni. It's a good mid-range place. It doesn't have the prestige of Manchester or Manchester Met, but I went there and I studied media, French, and business, and did the musical stuff kind of on the side. And I had a very good friend there called John, who was a bassist and who was studying music there, and we hung out a lot, went to loads of gigs, played and listened to a load of music, and had a pretty good time doing it. So, yeah.
Salford were one of the... By the way, if you can hear that noise, they'd currently taken all the plaster off downstairs from the flood we had a few weeks ago. So that's that. I just got approached by an earplug company to do some videos for them, and I said, "Can you send them right away? Can you send those earplugs immediately? Because I can't sleep in the morning." Salford were doing... You know, remember like when I was studying when I was 21, there was a lot of places to like access to music, and people were doing those popular music courses. Because until then, everything was very classical based. And then you had these companies, and Salford were doing that too. I ended up going to Thames Valley in London instead. But they were kind of forward in that respect, doing those kind of courses. So did you ever study? And can you just clarify? Pooh Ninja, I think, is on the side of himself. He misheard you. Did you say you got your guitar teacher pregnant at 13?
I'll have to watch it back, but no, for any lawyers watching, it wasn't me. And when I was learning from her, I was about 7, so technically it probably couldn't have been me.
Pooh Ninja, stop drinking that cider from the Midlands, please. So did you have any other formal training at all then after that?
No. When it comes to music. And if you watch my channel, it shows. I'm very much, a simple, self-taught sort of a player. And I don't know, it's a big debate, isn't it? How important is music theory? And looking back on it, I kind of wish I had the chance to learn a bit more. Because I do find myself, when I'm songwriting, sometimes looking for the next chord. And I kind of think if I knew a bit more theory, I might be able to say, aha, I know exactly what would fit there in that song. But no, I don't know that, and I have to work things out by ear. And I've gotten pretty good at it, but I think theory would make some aspects of music and songwriting a bit easier.
But then there's that argument of when you know the theory, when you know what should work and what you should put next, that you won't find anything new. So I find that sometimes, I'm playing a G, I'm playing a D, next should be E minor. Right, but then that's boring because everyone does that. So if you don't know the theory, you might throw a B flat in there. Right?
Yeah, that is a very good point. And I come from that side personally, but just to play devil's advocate, I would also say you've got to know the rules in order to break them in the most successful way.
Yeah.
But, having said that, most of my favorite artists are people who themselves don't have any musical theory. So I don't know if I'm drawn to that because I personally don't have any musical theory experience, but that's just the way it is with me.
That's a really interesting
I think if I could go back again,
topic.
it would be nice to have, but I don't need it.
Let us know in the chat if you've formally studied music theory and if you think it's of value to you, or if you think it can be a hindrance. So that's a whole video right there, isn't it? It's a whole topic.
Yeah.
So what were your plans then?
Do you have music theory?
I
shouldn't be interviewing you, should I? But
wait for our interview. I did a lot of study, but then do I think it helps me now? That's another question. I had to do some sight reading the other week, and that really helped for that because I would have been completely lost. But that's a skill I use once every 3 years. And then the argument is, was it worth paying to study at university for 3 years to use it once every? We'll talk about that on your show. But what were your plans then? Like at the age of say like 18 to 21, were you thinking I want to be a professional musician, or were you thinking I want to go into the industry? And then what was your first job in the music industry?
When I grew up, I was one of the rare ones who actually liked music and football. So I also played football to quite a high level. That's soccer for Poo Ninja and anyone in America watching. I was pretty good at that. And I always thought I could make it as a professional footballer, but that didn't happen either because I was not good enough, quite evidently. I never really imagined that I could do music as a career because I thought that the only way you could do it would be to become a performer. You know, when I was growing up, I never imagined that there were people making amazing careers doing everything that a band doesn't do. I didn't think about people who own studios. I didn't think about road managers or talent agents or anything like that. And obviously nothing like YouTube existed, so I didn't think about anything like this. And for some reason, I'd got it into my head that I would never be good enough to make it in an originals band. I guess I didn't have the confidence to imagine that I could do it. So I never took that seriously and I never thought about it. The one thing that I also excelled in when I was younger was writing and literature. And that's why I went to study media, because I wanted to combine some aspect of writing with the other stuff that I liked. I could have imagined myself getting into either sports or music journalism. And I continued to write throughout uni quite a lot. I wrote for all the student newspapers in Salford, in Manchester, doing music reviews, CD reviews, live gig reviews and stuff like that. And that was a pretty cool way to get free live CDs and things like this sent to me every week and stuff. But I never imagined I would join the music industry, and I kind of ended up getting my first job in the business by chance, pretty much. When I finished uni, I went straight into journalism. During my bachelor's, I had met a young German lady, and she's the reason I'm still in Germany now. And we moved to Berlin directly after we finished studying, and I started editing 2 magazines that dealt with European politics and corporate communications. So pretty much the opposite of anything rock and roll. But that taught me a lot. It gave me a very thick skin. It gave me many new skills, and it also gave me things that kind of were related to music, and it also got me to Berlin, which was an amazing hotbed of musical creativity and talent back at that time. That was in 2007, 2008, and there were loads of great bands there. And I picked up guitar a bit more seriously then and started playing it a bit more. Then we moved back to England in 2010, and I was kind of at a loss at that point. I did a postgraduate diploma in journalism, thinking more about going into feature writing, but I think I picked the wrong time to do that because newspapers are kind of on their way out. They're sort of dying off with the birth of the internet. And at some point, I picked up a couple of guitars that my dad had lying around, and they were vintage brand. And I'm sure you're familiar with the vintage brand of guitars.
Only from the NAMM show. That's where I first saw them.
Yeah. Well, vintage guitars are a brand which is owned by a company called JHS in the UK. Not JHS Pedals, but John Hornby Skews, based up near Leeds. And they worked with a guy called Trev Wilkinson, who you'll definitely know, who designs vintage guitars, who designed Fretking guitars, and a lot more musical stuff, and has done lots over the decades. But anyway, I ended up going on the Vintage Guitars website. They had a job going for a media relations coordinator. I applied for it, and they gave it to me. That was at the end of 2010. They took me to my first NAMM show in January 2011, and 10 years later, I'm still here.
Wow. And then so from that job, you went, did you go from there to Hughes and Kettner? Was there something else in between?
Yeah, so John Hornby Skews is an old school sort of distribution company. They were formed in the mid-60s by Mr. JHS, John Hornby Skews himself, and they have a bunch of their own products, but they also distribute lots of different brands. When I joined, they had about 80 different brands in their catalogue, and they were distributing Hughes and Kettner amps, and they were distributing HK Audio PA systems. And Hughes and Kettner and HK Audio are sister brands based in St. Wendel in Germany. And so I got to know those guys while I was working with JHS. After I left JHS, I moved back to Germany. Again, the Mrs. Rich is German, so we went back there. And Hughes and Kettner offered me a job. So I took that job and did that for 6.5 years. I was their kind of English marketing guy. I was sort of the face of the brand, doing all the videos, talking to artists, you know, doing artist relations as well, doing social media, doing pretty much everything that happened in English that company did.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Do you speak German then?
Yep.
Fully?
Yeah.
Oh. Guess you have to if you live in Germany, right?
Yeah, I speak it well enough that I have a passport now. So I've got dual citizenship and passed all the tests and stuff. And that means whatever happens with Brexit, I could stay. So that's pretty cool.
So you were with Hughes and Kettner for how many years?
About 6.5.
6.5. So you've seen. I want to ask you about the NAMM show and the industry at that time. You were part of the industry like around 2010, 2011 and upwards. So how did you? Because I didn't go to NAMM shows until like 2017, I think, maybe 2016. How have you seen things? Forgetting what's happening right now, because this is obviously a huge curveball, but during those years, how did you see the NAMM show kind of change? Did it change? Did it change at that time, or has it always been kind of the same? And how have you felt that the industry has kind of moved in those years, if at all?
Yeah, for me, the NAMM show has always been an incredibly exciting place. Like the first time I went there, I was really new in the company, and I was like a kid in a candy store or whatever. It was just this huge place full of guitars and pedals and amps and gear and people who were similar to me. So it was amazing. And over the next kind of 4 or 5 years, it felt like it started to dip a little bit. Like the industry went through some toughish times. But by 2020, that was pretty much the best show I'd seen since 2011. So things were going really good, and then suddenly, abruptly, they had to stop. But yeah, I remember when I started, we were down in Hall E, which is the basement hall.
I like it then.
It's like
that's the fun hall.
It's the fun hall where all the weird kind of innovative new companies are. A lot of kind of Chinese and Far Eastern companies are there, and you get a lot of the acoustic companies are down there as well. Yeah. So it's this super cool room with loads of quirky stuff, and we were down in there with the JHS instruments, with the Vintage brand, the Fret King brand, Italia guitars, and stuff like that. And it was always a massive pleasure for me to go upstairs and look at the big boys, look at the Fender booth, look at the Gibson booth, check out the Marshall booth and see how they did things. And the super cool thing about NAMM is that you get to meet so many different people, you know? And now it's got to a point after doing 10 of them where I can't walk from one room to another without meeting 20 people. You know, every few meters you meet people, you have to talk to them and stuff. So it's super cool. And I think that, as I was saying, in the middle part of the last decade, the show kind of dropped off a bit. There seemed to be kind of a loss of interest in it slightly. But in the past 3 or 4 years, up to 2020, it was getting bigger again. And one thing I was seeing a lot more of was YouTubers. They had not been there at all before, pretty much. It was Rob Chapman, and that was about it. And then 3 or 4 years before 2020, you started seeing other channels popping up, appearing at stands, and brands taking them more and more seriously. Yeah. And now YouTubers are a massive thing there, a really important part of the show.
So, yeah, I was going to say, do you think, as someone in the industry, are YouTubers at the trade shows helpful or not helpful? And also, do you see more people showing up kind of trying stuff on? Like, I saw some people at shows that were kind of students in the area that blagged their way in and were basically saying outright to me, I'm going to go in there and get some free stuff. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I've seen so much of that, you know. That was happening before, by the way. It just wasn't young students. You'd get like, you still get it now. You see people who are clearly, they're just friends of people who work in the industry. They've got a pass to get in, and they just come around and they'll say, hey, so I used to play guitar with this one guy who used to play guitar with a guy who once was the bassist for the band that became Guns N' Roses. So like this 7 degrees of separation thing or something. And I'd say, okay, cool. Yeah. And then they'd say, so I really like what you're doing. Can I have some stuff? And I'd say, no. And that was about it, really. NAMM is like a really hard place to impress people from brands. And it's very easy to see who's authentic and who's not. It's become more difficult with YouTubers because you're all so smooth, you know, you're such charmers. But it's the thing for me has always been that because I work directly with a lot of people on that side of the business, I work with artists and I work with YouTubers and I work with the press. What I tend to do is always work with the people I'm interested in before the show. So I will have chance meetings like I did with you, for example, but I will want to have a plan for myself in my head of who I want to see at the show and what I want to achieve before I do it. I'll go there and do it. And anything else that might happen is a bonus. But
Isn't that
Yeah,
easier now?
there are a lot of chances now.
Don't you just play? Don't you just literally play at your phone now in front of the person and load up their channel and say, well, you've got X amount of subscribers and interaction? Isn't that the case now or not?
Yeah, you can do that, but you've also got to be really, really careful because there are people who will impersonate other channels.
Really?
And I mean, obviously,
Wow.
if it's a channel like yours, I know what you look like, and I know if it's not you, it's not you. But
Hey, I'm Aaron
people...
Shaw, and I want to get some free BluGuitars.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. But yeah, there are people trying it on, so you've got to be really careful.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it happened before YouTube as well. Definitely. I was just wondering because the way I see it, some new companies spend a lot of money to go to NAMM, and then they desperately like have to make an impact. They have to make their sales. They have to promote and network. And I bet 50% of the people that speak to them are kind of wasting their time and they're distracting them from what they're doing. So I was wondering a couple of years ago if they might get stricter and allow less of that. Make it more kind of like you have to be in the industry. You have to have so many subscribers or something. Like you have to like, I don't know. I just wonder if that would really annoy companies to be kind of. I felt it when I would speak to people as well. Like you're just another person speaking to them. That's the thing about NAMM, especially in California. It's so big. Then again, the industry is so small, and I guess like the fact that I knew Henning, and I met you through Henning was good, right? Because you know him really well, and then he knows me, and so I guess it is a small industry as well. But it's interesting. Now you have a channel as well. So when did you start your channel, and did you start it to promote these companies you work with, or did you start it to be a YouTuber yourself, or did you start it just to make some? What was the reason for actually starting a channel?
I'd wanted to start a channel for quite some time, just for fun. I'm not interested in doing the YouTube game, the gear YouTube thing where you're hustling companies for gear and stuff like that. I'd always wanted just to make videos that I enjoy about the stuff that I personally play. And I would have done it a lot sooner, but it was a little bit complex with regards to my Hughes and Kettner contract, what I could and couldn't show in videos, in that they didn't want me to show any competitive products or anything like that. So I held off with it until I was out of H&K effectively, and I left them around a year ago, and that's when I started posting videos. And
were you
I don't think it would have been an issue. I don't think it would have been an issue to have been doing videos while I was there, but it just felt easier not to.
Were you in the official Hughes and Kettner videos, like showing products and doing interviews?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, I was the face of the brand. So you can still go onto their channel and see a bunch of videos with me in them. So
okay, I shall go back and watch the early years. And how do you feel about doing YouTube now? So what's your angle now? Is your angle now so everyone knows you're working with BluGuitar now and Thomas Blug. So is your angle with that to, like when a new product is released, to promote that through your channel, or is it purely for yourself just to talk about your thoughts on the industry and the gear that you like?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is totally separate. I've never featured a piece of BluGuitar gear on my channel. In fact, I tend to stop looking in the background. This is the first time.
I told him to put it there. I was like, why is that?
There is actually, that BluGuitar amp is being propped up by an Engel amp. So there you go. Normally I use a Hughes and Kettner amp on all the playing stuff that I do, a Black Spirit 200, because I still own that amp and I still love it. It's a great amp, But there's no company affiliations in my videos, and I would like to keep it that way. I do videos on the BluGuitar channel as well. We do the Academy of Tone live streams every week or every other week when I'm on, and that's enough for me. This is kind of separate, and I think it probably or possibly does confuse a few people, but it's working out so far.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to ask you, like, what's the angle? I see it as you having your own channel and being completely separate. I was just wondering, if you've got any plans to go into that. I mean, I imagine are you going to keep that completely separate? Like everyone knows, it's common knowledge that there'll be like the Amp X next year or so. When that releases, are you going to make a video about that on your channel? I assume you would do. It's a big release.
I realize I could get one and make a the first video, you know. I could
Take all the
I could
hits.
launch it effectively on that channel. Exactly, yeah. I could just release it a few days before or whatever. But yeah, I'll talk to Thomas about it, but I don't really want to feature it because I feel like the BluGuitar stuff and the Hughes and Kettner stuff, that was work, and the Rich Words music channel is just a little hobby thing on the side. So I don't want to feel like that's work at all. And so, a couple of pedal companies have sent me pedals to make demos with, like Nuex, for example, sent me a couple of pedals, but there was no money involved or changed hands. No one told me what I had to do. They weren't new pedals, so it wasn't getting like part of a launch or anything like that. And I'm trying to keep it light right now. As Poonin just said in the comments there, I go heavy with the demo riffs and tone samples. That's what I do. Basically, I have quite a lot of gear, more than I need, some of which you can see behind me, and I just like to showcase how it sounds in the way that I play music, which is probably quite different to a lot of the other YouTube demos out there. So maybe it helps some people, maybe it doesn't.
I just realized you're the first person I've had on that is not actively promoting, pushing their, I told you to put the amp one behind you. I have one behind me because that is where it lives. It fits over the amp handle, and I like the way it lights up in the background. So that's not there for this, just for this video. But you have one behind you because I told you to. But usually, if I have a guest on, they're actively pushing, as I expect them to. Like if I'm a guest on someone's channel, I would say I'm from Aaron Short Music. Please subscribe, ring the bell if you like what I do. But you're kind of almost going out of your way not to talk about BluGuitar.
Yeah, I mean, I can push it if you want. But I just thought we're having a nice chat.
No.
I'll do.
No, I do want to hear your
with this.
I do want to hear. I do want to hear your thoughts on it because I think it's a really interesting product, and I want to talk about that. I do. Yeah, I want to feature the product definitely, but because people that are watching this want to understand who you are and who you're working with. So I'll just start that by saying I made a video a few weeks ago where I compared a bunch of solid state, and I'm not saying that is solid state, by the way, but I compared some solid state options, and I didn't think they compared to the real tube amp at all. I made that video, and I was expecting a big backlash from that video. I didn't get it. Most people agree with me, which was kind of cool, actually. And I've tried a lot of things. I spent many years, again, I'll talk about this in more detail on your channel when we do the other interview, but I spent a lot of years trying to dial in the modelers and the Helix and the Kemper and all this stuff. And then ironically, during lockdown, I got the Fender amp. And when I plug into the real amp, I got a couple. I plug into them. I know you told me off for saying real amps. When I say real amp, I mean tube amp. When I plug into a decent-sized tube amp, even in a small apartment, it just sounds exceptional and just what I'm looking for. And often the digital stuff does not. Now, sometimes it does better for recording or in-ears, but in the room, I love that sound. And I tried a bunch of solid-state options in that video, and I've tried a few others as well, and they just don't have that sound. So I had tried an amp one before, but then this one, I dialed it in differently. Like I used the boost on the clean to brighten it up, and I ran it through one of my larger cabs I have here, and it just sounds much closer to me to an actual tube amp. At least at the volumes I'm playing at in here. I want to take it out and try it at the wedding band I'm doing now as well. So I'm hoping to have Thomas on here to talk about it, but can you just give me your, I mean, you've got real amps there. Sorry. You've got tube amps. You've played the Hughes and Kettner stuff. I haven't played the Black Spirit stuff, but you're now representing amp one. So what for you as a player? Okay. We won't do the spiely, sales pitch stuff, but as a player, what are your thoughts on modelers and solid state and all the? I mean, you walk around the NAMM show, and all you get is millions of ways to amplify an electric guitar, right? There's hardly anything for singers. There's the drum area, but there's just like a million products to amplify an electric guitar, and it's kind of crazy how many solutions or options we have now, right? So what are your thoughts as a player on the Amp 1 and the tube amps and the modeling and all these different options that people have now to amplify their guitars?
I think I come from the school of thought which increasingly younger up-and-coming players are coming from, and that's to say, I don't care what the technology is as long as it sounds good and it does what I want it to do. I mean, once you've played a big tube amp, once you've played a full stack, like I was involved in a video that was shot at the first GitCon event where Pete Thorne made a video where a bunch of guys tried a cranked Marshall Plexi stack.
Yeah, saw that.
And I'm not in the video, but I got to play it. And the way that hits you in the gut when you strike an A chord on something like that is something I've never been able to replicate with a modeling amp or a smaller amp or anything like that. But on the other hand, I realized that having a full Marshall Plexi stack is the least practical option you can have as a guitar player in 2020 or 2021. So for me personally, if I can get 80, 90% there with a little modeler that fits in my pocket and I can plug directly into my computer or the PA to record, I'm good. I'm not a snob. And I think probably
what are you saying?
The amp companies that I've worked for are kind of... They would rather I was different about it, but I've always been open about the fact that if something sounds good for me, it is good, and I'll continue to use it.
I guess, am I a snob? I'm disappointed that I've tried all these millions of options.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, but I'm disappointed that I've tried millions of options for this stuff, and the thing that sounds the best to me is just plugging straight into a Fender Twin. You know, it just does it. It does it. And okay, it's not good for in-ears. It's not good for recording, maybe. It's not good for your back. And that's why I'm always looking for smaller solutions. I've just started gigging again in Manhattan. And my solution last week really blew me away because I took a mic stand across my back in a case, a very light one, acoustic guitar on my back, Bose S1 Pro, which is 16 pounds in one hand, and a cable bag in the other with my small pedals in it. And okay, it's not fun to take that rig, but it worked and it sounded really good and it fills the room. So that's where compromise is worth it for me. Of course, if I'm driving, I'll take the full PA, the mixer, the monitors, and it will sound better, but it will take me much longer to set up. It's much more risk involved financially, and it's not fun to take that down to the car at all. So that's why I'm always looking for something small that works. And for me, the Amp 1, I mean, it's so tiny. Can you just show us yours again? Mine's plugged in back there, lighting up. That's the Iridium edition. That's the one I tried. I've got the Mercury, and I actually prefer that one. I don't know why. I guess they're voiced differently, right? So
they're voiced differently, exactly.
That thing is so light, and it plugs straight into any cab, and then you've got a sound which for me is really close to again the real tube amp. I can't stop saying that. I edited my video and kept thinking, oh man, I keep saying the real thing, and I want to go back and change it. I knew someone would call me out on it. But yeah, it's for me, that's the first thing I've really tried that gets me close enough to where I would be happy to take that. So, I mean, that's really great. And it's no secret that I met Thomas at that last NAMM show we were talking about, and he had the prototype of the Amp X, and there's no secret that will be out next year. I think that's really exciting, because one thing I'm missing from the Amp 1 is the effects. Now, I can just plug my pedal board straight into it. I'm currently making a new pedal board, and that's a great option, just to plug into that and use your existing pedals. But I often think to myself, all I need is a clean boost, a tap tempo delay, and a way to maybe revoice each amp slightly differently. That's all I need. So if that comes in a new product that's slightly larger, then I think that's going to be really killer. If it still sounds that authentic and the effects are authentic and everything, I think that'll be a great solution, again, for people like me that are taking a subway. If I can show up with that thing and plug into their cab, I mean, that really solves a problem for me. Some products don't solve a problem. Some products are still big and still heavy. And then you've still got to dial them in. They still don't sound as good. You know, I often think some people that have like a huge, heavy modeler and a huge, heavy powered amplifier to plug it into, I often think, why not just use an amp and a pedal board? Because it kind of weighs the same, right? You don't quite get the flexibility, but the weight is not. But with the Amp 1, it's so small, it's so light. You can literally take that as even as a backup or a second amp or something. So it's exactly. It's cool. I like it. I really like it. I look forward to the Amp X.
I think Thomas has always been similar to you in that he's always thinking about practicalities. Like, he originally designed the Amp 1 because he was sick of carrying around his bigger Hughes and Kettner amps. And before Hughes and Kettner, he was sick of carrying around his Marshall amps. You know, he's a Marshall Plexi guy originally.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to distill down into the Amp X, into that small size. And the one thing that he didn't manage to do with the Amp 1 was put his pedal board into it, because he does have a bunch of pedals that he really always likes to have with him. For example, the Hughes & Kettner Replex, which is incredibly big and heavy and cumbersome for a pedal. It has a stupid power supply. It's impossible to get new parts for it, etc., etc. And the idea behind the Amp X is to really get that gigging rig even smaller for him and to have literally everything in one box. And effectively, he's going to just have the Amp X on the floor in front of him and one cable running to a PA, maybe a cab if he needs that for stage monitor, and that's it. He's good. So he's coming from a pretty similar angle to you, I would say, in that respect. And the Amp X is going to be, it's going to be pretty awesome, I think. It's not going to be the cheapest amp in the world, but it's going to, people who get the idea will absolutely love it.
I mean, if it includes the effects, you've got to remember that. Like, just me building a pedal board right now, I mean, the power supply is $200, right? If you're lucky, the board is
if you get a good one, yeah.
$200. The pedals, you're looking at $1,000 just for that, and then you've got your amp. So I don't think that's a problem. As long as it sounds and recreates that feeling of my existing stuff, I think it'll be great. And again, these things are so small. Even as a backup or a secondary rig, they really have a good place, I think. I got to say, and this is probably unfair, but my first thought, I'll just be honest, but my first thought when I saw that thing at NAMM, and when he told me about it, and by the way, Thomas, thank you. That video got a lot of views. I appreciate it. I thought, man, this is a big project. From what he's talking about, IRs, modeling different, recreating different amps. I'm not quite sure how he's doing it. All the technology, to go from the Amp 1 to the Amp X with all this new stuff. I mean, how many people work at the company? It just seems like a huge project to me.
It's a pretty huge project, especially when you consider that there are 3 full-time employees.
Exactly. 3.
Yeah, it's a massive thing. I remember when I saw the Amp X at NAMM 2020, and I was still with Hughes & Kettner at that point, but I always go and see Thomas because we'd been good friends for many years, and he'd been trying to tempt me away from H&K, let's say, for quite a few years before that. I originally met him in the UK because he has vintage signature guitars, so he'd always be hanging around the JHS booths, doing demos for us and stuff like that, so that's how we got to know each other. But when I first saw the Amp X, my first thought was, okay, this is interesting. And then my second thought was to grab the Hughes & Kettner senior product manager, Rudiger, and bring him down to have a look as well, because what Thomas was proposing there seemed to be too good to be true. And I guess it was in a way, because we're now, nearly 2 years later, and it's still not here. But it is such a huge project, and, with 3 or 4 people in the team, 3 full-time, 1 part-time, it's just been so difficult to do. And of course, having a global pandemic has slowed things down considerably as well.
Well, yeah.
But it is scheduled to be released at NAMM next year. It was originally going to be January. Now the show has been put back to June, and we're going to release it then.
So it sounds like it's if you were going to release it in January, it must be almost done. So, yeah. I mean, I'm really impressed. I mean, I can't quite get my head around it, because like, you look at like the Quad Cortex. I mean, I don't know how many employees Neural DSP have, but I think they've got more employees than that, and they released that, and they still haven't released all the software updates that they've promised yet. And I see that a lot now, and that's one thing that annoys me. Like, I've got the new, I did some videos for JBL for their new PRX1. I think it's great. I've been using it at my shows, but I haven't been pushing it yet because I'm waiting for the app to be updated. It should be any day now that they'll release an update for the app to fix all the bugs and things, and then I'm gonna really push it, because I'm very tired and frustrated of seeing a lot of products that get released and are not ready. It happens all the time now. Products get. I do understand it, because think of the R&D that goes into a new product. I don't know what goes into like something like the Amp X, but some companies and companies like Hughes & Kettner, they must put so much money into R&D, and I'm sure they have a date they have to release it to start making money back and to ship it and all these things, especially now with all the extra challenges that you have with the shipping. But just I'm worried in the industry it's going to happen more and more, that things get released and then get fixed later. I mean, is the Amp X going to have firmware updates, or is that going to be kind of out the door, it is what it is?
No, there will be updates. That's definitely something that will be included, and the firmware will get it will evolve with the amp and with the company
Okay.
as well. But it is interesting what you say about products not being ready. I think that with BluGuitar, actually being a smaller company made it a lot easier for us to survive the pandemic in a way, because we didn't have the massive overheads of a larger company. We're not paying a massive workforce. We don't have a huge building. We're not paying massive rental costs. We're selling much less in terms of product anyway at the start when things are good. So we have less problems once less guitar players are buying amps. We have to sell less to survive. So it's been a lot easier for us than for a lot bigger companies. But I totally hear you about things being released that were not ready. So you have the Quad Cortex, the Neural DSP, and the Spark amp by Positive Grid.
Oh,
Both
yeah.
of those were kind of launched to big fanfare, and for different reasons, both of them had issues delivering to genuine customers. And I think that's a big frustration for lots of players who had ordered those amps or pre-ordered them even. And I'm not going to criticize those companies or say negative things about them, but that's definitely something that we wanted to do a bit differently with BluGuitar. So there was never going to be kind of a fixed set date with pre-orders where people will be giving money to us already before the product was ready or anything like that. We're definitely going to make sure that when the amp is released, there is a firm date in sight, and we probably, by June, we should be delivering already, no problem.
I think there's two ways to look at it. I think it's very easy for me to criticize. I don't have a company. I don't build products. Of course, like I said, the R&D that goes in has to be made back. Products have to be released at some point. And firmware is a good thing because it means that we can have something fixed or improved in the future. But the only danger is when companies will then say, I mean, even Apple are doing it now. Like the new iPhone will shoot raw 4K, but not yet, in an update next month or the month after. So when you think like a company like Apple is doing it, so Apple couldn't get that feature ready for their launch date of the software on the new phone. And then you think, well, how can anyone possibly now like release things kind of ready to go at launch? And it's like Boss. Boss don't do many firmware updates. They tend to release products, and what you get is what you get. But then you get the opposite problem of, well, I want some new stuff now, and you can't get it. So I totally see both sides of it. But it'll be interesting to see. Well, I'll sit back and see what you do with the Amp X and how that is out the gate, and how that goes. But I'm just really excited for that form factor. I still think that the larger gear is still viable for a lot of people. I mean, there's not many people taking the Subway like me. I think some people also take like small portable gear, and they don't necessarily need it. Like they could get something bigger. But for me, it's all about the sound, and I'm so impressed with the Amp 1. I can't wait to see what happens with the Amp X. So we'll watch that space. So how did that actually happen? How did Thomas get you to jump ship, so to speak? Can't leave a better
Like
phrase.
I said, we'd been talking about it for years, actually. I joined Hughes and Kettner in the summer of 2014, and he'd not long been gone from there. He was with H&K for about, I think, 27 years.
Right.
As a designer, as the demo guy at trade shows, as kind of Thomas Blug doing his thing, sort of. And it came to a point where he really wanted to go on with this Amp 1 idea. He proposed the floor amp to H&K, actually.
Oh.
And at the last minute, they turned it down. And they said, no, sorry, this is something that we can't do. And I think he felt so strongly about it that he went to do it on his own. And so that's where BluGuitar came from as a company. So he set up shop doing that in Saarbrücken, so also close to here in Germany, in 2014. And I started working for H&K at about the same time. We continued to meet at trade shows, at the NAMM show. We saw each other privately on occasion, stuff like that. And we quite often openly discussed the fact that I was happy where I was, but he'd say to me, if I had enough money to afford you, I'd make you an offer. And we always said that on and off. And by NAMM 2020, the last NAMM show, it got to a point where he said, I could probably afford to pay you for about half of the week now on the salary demands that you have. And I said, well, that's interesting because I'm kind of coming to a natural end at H&K, I think. So let's talk about it. And so we did. We talked about it. And we started to kind of draw up ideas of a contract and stuff. And this was March 2020. And then COVID happened. And then we
Wow.
decided to delay it a bit. And I ended up joining in October. So I've been there almost a year now.
So how has COVID affected your company? Because all I hear lately is we can't get parts. We're having to replace parts. One company told me they've had stuff stuck on a boat for 3 months, just sitting there. There's no one to even unload the stuff from the boats. So how has that affected you as a company?
Yeah, it's affected us in the same way that it's affected lots of others. I mean, we've been not as bad as some of the other companies that I know because we had pretty decent stock beforehand. But actually, even in our case, I remember we got some stock back from America to bring to Europe to sell because we just couldn't get it from China. So we've been waiting on stuff. We are waiting on a lot of things like Blue Box, as you know, and cabinets are a massive problem right now. Just getting them shipped over is not an option. It's taking so much longer to get things made. It's taking so much longer to ship stuff, and it's costing so much more to hire a shipping container that it's made things really difficult. So
Yeah.
we've had issues. And of course, when it comes to the tiny little parts that make up amplifiers and make up speaker cabinets and blue boxes and stuff like that, these things have become harder to source in some instances. So it's just made everything that much more difficult, that much more costly, and that much more risky to do. So we're in that position the same as everybody else. We're coming through it, and I feel like we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel now. Like things are going to start to get better as of next spring. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I want to talk about the next NAMM show, but that's kind of crazy, and that's what I heard at Summer NAMM too. Everyone was telling me that the cost of shipping is impacting them a lot as well. Like everything. I'm surprised that more gear hasn't gone up in price actually, because that's all I've heard is that the cost of everything has gone up for the companies.
It's really interesting because, like, for amp companies, we had the issues that I've talked about, but for some companies like Fender, for example, in 2020, they sold more guitars in that year than they'd ever sold before.
Ever, yeah.
So they had a really good year.
Yeah.
But now what we're kind of starting to see is more of a shortage of certain guitar ranges in stores. So it is going to be interesting to see how that reflects on the prices in the new market. It's in Germany, I would say the used market's been affected quite a lot. You see prices for kind of standard things going up and up and up, but you know, it's a buyer's game as well. So
Has Amp One increased in price throughout the pandemic, or stayed the same? Your product.
we increased Amp One by €50, I think, both of the models. That was halfway through the pandemic, and it was something that they had been planning before the pandemic, before my time, before I joined the company, but just hadn't done it. And they did it during the pandemic, and that was that. It just happened, and weirdly enough, no one complained. So Thomas thinks it was a good idea.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. So, what are your thoughts on the NAMM show moving from January to June next year?
I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, yeah, first off, it's a necessary thing to do. You know, I think having it in January is probably going to be a lot less safe than having it in June when the weather is going to be warmer. But yeah, for us Europeans, it's going to be very hot. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do it in terms of having the Winter NAMM show and the Summer NAMM, the Nashville show, in the same show. From a company perspective, it's going to be interesting to see how it happens over 3 days instead of 4, because that's the plan. I'm wondering if the 4 days of booth time that we paid for is going to get reduced in price, you know, because it's only going to be 3 days. It's going to be very interesting to see who can make it, because June is also a time when artists and touring musicians, people in the industry, would be out doing stuff. So if tours can happen again, June is festival season. And also in terms of, you know, being there, going there as a company in June, we're all going to have to rebook travel. We're going to have to book accommodation and stuff. And June is peak Disney family holiday time. So presumably everything is going to be much more expensive.
Yeah.
Overall, I think having a NAMM show at all next year is going to be amazing. So if it happens, we'll be there like a shot. It's going to be great. I think it's very important for the industry to do it, but it's going to be expensive, and there's a few questions about it as to how good it's going to be, because I've also heard kind of rumors that some of the big boy companies are kind of having second thoughts about whether they even want to do it.
That's how I felt about Summer NAMM. I wanted to go to Summer NAMM. I knew it would be small. I was just happy that they were moving forward and doing it at all. I didn't agree with people that said it was like some videos said like, oh, NAMM is dying, NAMM is over, NAMM was terrible. It was not fair. You're running a trade show in the middle of a pandemic. Come on. I thought it was good. It was more of a social thing anyway, which I think NAMM is a social thing. The whole thing about is it still relevant? I mean, that's a really tough question. What you have more insight into that? Have been at all the NAMM shows over the years, working with companies that go to NAMM shows. How important is NAMM for like launching the AMP X? So why can't you do it without NAMM? Why wouldn't it be as good without it?
I see NAMM as being hugely important, but probably less so than it was. I see it more of like a networking marketing opportunity than just a sales opportunity. I think a lot of people forget that the NAMM show strictly is a B2B show, end customers are not invited there. There are many shows where end customers are invited. For example, the Sweetwater Gear Fest or the LA Amp Show or something like that, or Guitar Summit here in Europe. But the NAMM show was traditionally just for doing business. And obviously with YouTube and video and social media, it's become much more obvious for the public what's going on, and everyone wants to go there, and that's cool, but it's changed the way people think about it. And I think that as a show it's still hugely important, and I think this next show that happens in 2022 is going to be the most important yet in terms of bringing the industry together, and just in terms of motivation and morale, and letting us all realize that things are going to carry on, and we are going to be able to carry on building amps and guitars and pedals and drums and brass instruments and everything like that. For the industry, I think it's crucial. I know a lot of other people disagree with me, but that's the way I see it.
I gotta say, a lot of products have still been announced and released. Like every week there's something new coming out. So
yeah, the question of whether companies need the NAMM show as a product launching platform is a different one. I would say for a smaller company like BluGuitar, it's super important because we can't get the saturation that we would at the NAMM show anywhere else, And if I meet 100 YouTubers at the NAMM show and they all do a short video on the Amp X, that is worth so much more than individually shipping stuff all over the planet for us to do it. If you're a Fender or a Boss or a Marshall or a Gibson, then of course it's different, because you also have the money to put on amazing events of your own and put on massive clinic tours for people regionally and locally and stuff like that. For us, it's a different thing. And I also think that if NAMM doesn't happen, for all those smaller and medium-sized companies around the globe, that is the place where they go to get heard, to meet people like you or Henning or me or whatever, to get their name out there. If NAMM doesn't happen, they won't be able to do that.
Are you saying that a company like Fender have so much money in the bank that they can just send out 1,000 units and even pay for YouTube reviews, whereas your company cannot afford to do that?
That's definitely one angle. I mean, think about the recent Fender Player Plus launch that happened in the last couple of weeks. Think about the Fender Acoustasonic guitars.
I heard you talking about that on Catpick Studios. Yeah. I agree.
They've released 2 or 3 of those, and there were so many videos. And if I just think about the costs of shipping those out, the costs of the units, plus the fees that they pay those YouTubers, because I know how much a lot of the YouTubers cost, that's probably more than the entire BluGuitar company budget for a whole year.
I was disappointed with that because I've done some videos. I covered the Strat Acoustasonic, so I was sent that for review. But I use it, and some of these videos now, you get a new product and everyone makes a video on it, and you never see the thing again. So I was disappointed they didn't say to me something like, "Oh, can we send you the new one, and can you do something like a performance every week or every month for the next 12 months?" Something like that. So you're actually constantly using it in the stream and showing people how you're developing with it, rather than just, hey, this thing's kind of, I don't know. I think that's really dangerous to have people review a product and they never actually use it ever again, because what's the point, right? Like what do you actually use at
Yeah.
a gig? I do have some pedals
Yeah.
like that. I actually I was thinking the other day there's some gear I use that I haven't made videos about, which is what I use all the time. Like for example, TC Helicon. I've done interviews with them. I have done some live streams about it. But I use the TC Helicon Play Acoustic basically to earn my living, right? I use that at all my shows. And yeah, it's other products that I talk about, like the new ones, like the new. I got the new Peterson tuner here. Got do one on that. So yeah, this is something I'll use on my desk and whatever. But that pedal is something I would like to do more on, the TC stuff. But they're not really. Once they got bought by Behringer, they're not really doing much anymore. They don't really even not even really interested in doing like live streams or anything with me. So there's not much content to do about it other than to say, hey, this is what I use at my gigs. So there's that whole side of it as well. But the opposite of that is reviewing something, saying it's great, and then never touching it again. And I guess you want to avoid that with the Ampex as well, right? You can pay anyone to review the Ampex and say this thing's great, go and buy one. But if they never use it ever again, what does that really say about the product? You obviously want people actually going to be using it as well. So I get it. There's a whole challenge now with this YouTube stuff, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to be much pickier with who we work with. Thomas is very clear with me that he doesn't want to spend money working with people who are just kind of, gear production factories in terms of videos. They'll have one amp on 1 week. It's the best amp I've ever played. It does this, this, and this. Done. Like you said, you'll never see it again. And in a couple of weeks' time, there'll be another one, which is the best amp they've ever played and sounds like this. Bam, done. Next one. There are companies who can afford to throw gear at everyone, at all the biggest channels. Fender have a pretty big budget. I'm fairly sure of that. And we don't, so we have to do things totally differently. The other side of that is that companies like Fender, they've got money to run their own events. And Fender were kind of, in my personal opinion, they were the company that led to the demise of the Music Messe in a way, because they were the first big company who decided not to be there. They said, we can spend our money better than a Music Messe booth if we just run our own Fender shows. And they did that. Lots of other brands followed, and the Music Messe kind of started to die out. So that's the way it happened for them. And there was a good comment from Poo Ninja, which I've lost, where he mentioned...
Well, Gibson did that too one year. When they had their problems, they weren't at NAMM. That really affected it, didn't it? When Gibson were not there.
Yeah, exactly. It gives people
like,
a totally different opinion on it.
Is this the end?
Yeah.
And then they came back in a huge way the year after that.
Yeah, exactly. And when Fender did it with Music Messe, that would have been in about 2010 or something like that, I guess. 2011, 2012. And that kind of started a domino effect of companies not going. So other big companies like Marshall pulled out, Warwick, Framus, a big German company, and that led to just, hardly any companies of renown going to that show. So if those big companies are not going to go to the NAMM show, it's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, Thomas and me, we've talked about the fact that if those companies are not at the NAMM show and we are, that is just more of an opportunity for us, because if none of the other amp companies are there, then everyone will come and see us. So we win.
I want to go. I will try. I'm trying my best to go, but like you said, even for me, June is like wedding season. So I have to, in January I wouldn't miss many shows, but in June that's wedding season for the agencies I work for, and it's more expensive to fly. Everyone's booking up, like you said, that Disney's right there, which is cool in January because you can go there and there's no one around. But in June, it's going to be crazy. And the hotel I used to stay at was a Disney-based hotel, kind of not branded, but had like the theme of Disney. So obviously the families would stay there. So the price of that will go up. Yeah. It's only 3 days. What I loved about the one we met at was it was actually I got there because I was there with Rainsong, helping out Rainsong with their booth, and I got in on like the Monday or whatever. So I was walking around for a few days before it even opened. And then I had, was it 4 or 5 days that show? 4 days, right? Thursday.
4, yep. Thursday through Sunday.
Right, through Thursday to Sunday. So I was actually there like Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I love that. To fly out there just for 3 days, I don't know. And let's face it, there will be some companies that don't go as well. If they've got to fly in and spend money on all that stuff as well. I'm sure there'll be companies that are not there. I don't know. Perhaps things won't really get back to how they were until 2023 or 2024. And then
But hey,
maybe
think about this as well. If you've got NAMM happening next year over 3 days instead of 4, but the plan is still to get 100,000 people through the doors, you're actually going to have more people squeezed into that same building than you would have done in previous years. While at the same time, there will be presumably COVID health and safety regulations, a bit of distancing going on. How is that going to work? I don't know. But that's a question that they're going to have to find an answer to at some point.
yeah. I mean, look, like YouTube has become even more since. I mean, like I wasn't doing live streaming before the lockdown. I wasn't doing as many videos. Loads more people are live streaming, doing videos. We're doing this today, and then we'll have NAMM as well. So I think we'll have to see, but it'll be really interesting to see what does happen with all this, won't it? Where does YouTube go from here? Where do the NAMM shows go from here? How are products released? And yeah, I think everyone can see that when those products get these mass releases, it's not really that cool. There must be cooler ways to do it. If you have got a big budget, there must be a way to do these releases and be a bit kind of cooler about how you do it. I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me to criticize. Like I said, I don't work in marketing or run these big companies, but
no, I think the best ever marketing launch which I've seen is actually one which I did, and that was the Hughes and Kettner Black Spirit 200 range, because Hughes and Kettner it's a big company, but we don't have a massive budget. You know, it was a small marketing team, and the money was not, that free flowing. And what we did was get a bunch of YouTubers to us for a week and got them making videos, having fun. We did
a bit like
cool
42 Gear Street, which you just went to.
Yeah, we hired a film crew. That was kind of a precursor to that event in a way.
Right.
So we did that twice. We did 2 of those events, and they went really, really well. And the year before that, 2016, I think we were the first company to kind of bring a YouTuber into us to launch a new product. We invited Rabia Massad to St. Wendel to do the Grandmeister Deluxe 40 launch, and there's videos with me and him just hanging out, him discovering the amp, and that paved a way for a lot of companies. But I think some companies understand the way to work in that context, and some companies don't. Some companies will just throw money at a launch, throw out amps left, right, and center, just go for the biggest channels that they can find, and others will work with people who they know will be right for the brand. For me personally, for example, I would always rather work with someone who has 3,000 subscribers who are, interested and dedicated and taking part in chats and interacting. I would much rather work with that person than someone who has 300,000 but no one cares.
Yeah. It's really tough. We could talk all day about that, the whole YouTube thing, and I often think about it myself, like, and I get sent stuff and I don't like it, and I have to say I don't want to feature it, so I send it back, and then I think, well, I've just wasted my time. There's that side of it as well, as a person. Like I can't afford to keep checking stuff out and sending it back and telling the company how to make it better, because I'm not getting paid for that. I guess you have to fact that into the whole arrangement, but it's definitely. I mean, it's all new. It's all evolving, isn't it? This whole thing, but it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. Let's jump over to the comments and see if we've got any questions in there. So Sergio is here, says music changes and unites. Larry Harris says, nice, had a hard time with music theory. I think most people do. Tone Wars is here, says hello Aaron. I think he's reviewed the Iridium on his channel.
Has he? I'll have to watch that.
Yes, that went rather well. He's kind of metal focused, so he reviewed that one.
I'm sure I know the channel. I just can't imagine the video off the top of my head.
Yeah, go check it out. Go check it out when we're done. Poo Ninja says, NAMM swag. It's too loud and hectic to go just for a few stress balls. People have said that to me. People have said to me, I went to a NAMM show. I hated it. Why would you want to go there? It was so loud, and after an hour, I just wanted to leave. I love it. Whenever I go there, I'm like you. I'm like a kid in the candy store. I love the people I get to see. I love seeing the new stuff. I love seeing the old stuff. I went there the year we met. I was in there when the forklifts were building the booths on the Monday morning, walking round and round and round. And then as the days went on, I went even longer because the booths were finished. And then those 4 days it was open, I was just going round and round the whole day from before they even opened, because I had my pass with Rain Song. And even then there was stuff I didn't see. I love it. I don't know why people say that, but I love it.
Yeah, I love the whole excitement about it, and I always get so down on the Sunday evening when you're there and you're you're going to tear the booth down and you've got to pack everything up, and those same guys come around and they pull up the carpets and stuff,
and it's all gone.
That's a sad time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I love the NAMM show.
It comes over the PA, doesn't it? Please leave. The show is over. Please leave.
Yeah, the NAMM show is over. We'll see you next year.
Yeah.
It's sad for me every time.
Me too.
Poo Ninja, I bet. I don't know. Have you been? The thing is, no one knows what he looks like, or she.
I know.
Because the ninja could indeed be female.
I said he or she. I was corrected. I was corrected
that
it is indeed a he. And Poo Ninja has a channel now. It's definitely a he. And never see the face. Though.
I know the channel. It just could be fake. It could be some kind of, because the Poo Ninja channel, the person speaking has a deep, rich baritone, and they can shred a bit as well. So I'm just wondering if it's
maybe it's me. Maybe it's me, and I'm actually logged into another YouTube account right now. How cool would that be?
Just blown my mind.
Can you imagine next year at the NAMM show? Oh, by the way, Rich,
it's you.
I am Poo Ninja. Oh,
I'm
man.
just wondering, like, if I'd be amazed or disappointed or both, if that was the reality.
I do wonder sometimes why I call my channel Aaron Short Music and use my real name and my face and everything. I think it's kind of cool when people have, like, I watch Flossie Carter, the phone reviewer, and you just see his hands and the cat on the table, and he's just reviewing the phones. I'm thinking that's so much easier to do it that way. He has done some streams where he shows his face, but it's so much easier to make videos like that. Imagine just the pedal on this. I just got this cool thing, look. Elgato green screen mouse pad.
Oh.
So what you do is you put it, obviously the green side, you put it on your desk and use it as a mouse pad. But if you put a pedal on here and then you use the green screen feature on my software I'm using right now, it will take that out, and then you'll just have the pedal sitting there floating in the air. I thought that'd be so much easier to do that than to have everything. So I think Poo Ninja made a good decision there. And one day we'll find out.
He did, and he just confirmed he's a man.
Okay, I knew it.
There we go.
Alec Bourne is here, Mad MIDI scientist. Says hi, Aaron and Richard. How you doing, Alec? Good to see you. And yes, the Amp X will have MIDI. I can confirm that, even though I don't know. I just assume it will. What do you think of these new MIDI connectors? These little mini boss
ones.
I like them, but what do you think of that versus the full size? Is it Amp X? I imagine it'll have full size MIDI, right? Not the tiny ones.
Yes, it'll be full sized. Yeah. I don't have any opinion on them. I've not used them. I mean, I think it's cool. You know, for me, downsizing stuff is good.
Yeah.
MIDI was a product of its time. There is talk of a new MIDI at some point. MIDI
2.0,
something like that. Whatever it's going to be. So that will be interesting. But yeah, for me, you know, if companies like Boss are going to innovate and make it smaller, that's awesome.
I think Poo Ninja is developing MIDI 2.0. The Real Thing says, I'm building a bigger bass pedal board with a couple of pedals worth almost $1,000 each. Wow. There you go, you see. And the CS6 power supply wasn't cheap either. Yeah, I'm looking for a power supply at the moment. I'm trying to find one that does like 10 isolated outputs and is small, so it'll fit under a pedal board. It's got to be a really good one, a really quiet one. I think the Chox 10 that will power a Stomp, HX Stomp, and it will take an IEC cable. But yeah, I mean those things alone. But you talk about the price of the products. Those things alone can be several $100s.
Yeah, Chox is kind of the one I would think of. The other one that lots of people talk about when it's more expensive but also kind of modular is the gig rig stuff. Get some generators in and get some wires going to and from them. But I've never used gig rig stuff, so I can't vouch for its quality. But it's supposed to be great.
Dr. McFarlane's here. You know him, I'm sure. I'll use the Amp X for recording as an alternative to my Head Rush.
It's going to be perfect for him with his Nashville studio stuff. He's going to have everything in it.
I just want to plug in.
The tones are going to be better.
I got the mini Head Rush that just came out. I did a trade at Guitar Center. It's good. It's good. Again, it's good for the size, but the touchscreen is so small that it's kind of hard for me to use. And I don't know. You know, I do lately.
We talked about this on the Catpic Fridays show,
Yeah.
and Vlad's experience with the headrush, and he told me that the touch screen looks great.
Yeah.
The whole idea looks fantastic, but the one thing that lets it down is the tones. I don't know if that's something you would agree with.
I quite like the tones, and I like the fact that you can switch presets with no gap. I think this stuff, I can't believe now in 2021 some of these products have the gap when you change presets, and then even the interface, like the new FM9 looks great from Fractal. But I don't like that interface. I really don't. I really struggle with it. I need my computer with me. And you know what? I don't want the touchscreen on the device. I want it on the iPad and the phone. I don't want to have to go down the floor to make the changes on the touchscreen. And I don't want someone in a bar looking down at my pedals saying, "What's that iPad on the floor?" and touching it. I want the iPad to be the remote on the mic stand. I got one here on my stand here. I want to control it from that. And Kemper did that recently. Yeah. They killed it with that. So I want to see that. But lately, I just plug the amp into the... One thing I absolutely love, again, I haven't spoken about it on the show, is the Universal Audio aux box. That thing is massive, but man, that sounds so good. You plug into that. I ran the amp one into that as well. And I think the secret is they have 2 cabs, 2 mics, stereo delay, stereo reverb in there. And when you're using the in-ears with that, it just sounds incredible. It's like a room reverb, a longer reverb, 2 cabs, 2 mics. I think that's the secret to that thing. And the stuff they do is so good. But it's just not practical to take that out to a gig because it's so big and expensive, but it sounds great.
Yeah.
The Law is here. Good to see you, buddy. I know he's I think he's endorsed by Hughes and Kettner, if I'm not wrong. So I haven't spoken to him for a long time. Things may have changed. I think am I wrong? I don't know. I shouldn't have said that, but I think he definitely has, or at least he has one of the amplifiers, the Black Spirit, I believe.
Yeah, the Black Spirit, of course, has Bluetooth functionality, and there is an app that you can have on iPad or Android. So you can have, on your mic stand, you can have the iPad app and control the amp from there. So that's a pretty cool thing.
There you go. So that's what I'm talking about. There will not be an iPad app for the Amp X, will there?
Not in the planning, and I guess it won't happen because
that's expensive.
It's probably too much hassle to get it done for the amount of people who buy the amp.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money. I don't want that. What I want, and the reason I like to plug the amp straight in, is I just want a clean, a crunch, a heavy, a clean boost, and a delay with a tap tempo, and I'm done. I'll never touch it ever again. It's just with some products, I can't even dial that in,
But do you not think then that, and I'm not trying to dissuade you from the Amp X, but you could get by very well with the Amp 1 Mercury Edition and a nice delay pedal, and you'd be done. You wouldn't need to drop $2,000 on the Amp X.
I heard Thomas talking about that on his stream. And
he's bringing it up a lot because this is a downside of having introduced the Amp X at NAMM 2020. There's a lot of people saying to us, I'd love to buy the Amp 1, but I might just wait for the X.
I'm waiting, yeah.
And he's saying, well, just make sure that you know that you need everything that's in the X before you spend the extra money, because the Mercury or the Iridium might be perfect for what you need.
Yes, I'm currently building a small pedal board, and maybe it's better in a way because I still like the whole thing of just having the delay you want, the chorus you want, and making those changes on that pedal on the board in real time and just playing. So you're absolutely right. I will try this new board into the Amp 1, into a cab or two, and if that's fine, I'll probably stick with that. I mean, the Amp X is still... I know, I love gear. I would still try it. I'd still want to try it, of course. And the thing is, like the Amp 1 doesn't have an IR. I prefer IRs to analog emulation. The Amp X will have those IR outputs, right, all built in. So it really will be an all-in-one and be even lighter than my pedal board. I think it's great. But I will try my board into it. I still love the idea of a pedal board, again, where you could have the effects you want, like the looper you want, the reverb you want. And I still think pedal boards are very... important these days, and you could even throw like an HX Stomp on there and use that as a MIDI controller or as a chorus or something. So I still think they're good ways to go. I just think the interface is interesting. I don't think the Amp X will... I mean, I might change my mind. I'm saying it doesn't need one. I think the biggest reason I want one on some products is I can't get them to sound good in the first place, so I'm constantly tweaking them, and that's why I want to have that. I don't really do that. Like with an amp, I just turn around and turn the volume up on that channel, and I just keep playing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's an interesting topic. But I just think there's even, my point was with the TC Voice Live 3, okay, the amps sound terrible, but it's amazing for a loop. It's got a 3-track looper. It's got vocal harmonies. That thing was released back in when you started going to NAMM, like about 2010, 2011. And it's still better than some products. Like the Helix looper is just a single channel looper. Like the old Voice Live 3X weighs nothing, and it's got a 3-channel looper in it. I mean, I guess you could also run that with the Amp 1 as well and use the Amp 1 for your amp tones. But some products that are coming out now are not as good as the products that came out 10 years ago for me, for my uses. And that drives me crazy. Like the Quad Cortex would be an amazing looper, wouldn't it? With the touchscreen and all those buttons on it. I'd use it just as a looper if it was a 4-track looper.
Yeah, the most over-spec looper ever, yeah.
But it doesn't have a loop. It doesn't have a loop. I would buy one just for that, but it doesn't have a looper in it yet. So I get a bit frustrated with some gear. There will be blueprints. Yes, I remember him telling me about those. And the X-Wings, very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I guess you have to change that name or you'll get in trouble with...
I don't know. I was laughing at that because obviously there is another format that uses the term X-Wings, but we still refer to them as X-Wings. So you never know. They might not be copyrighted in this little music instrument niche.
I've got to get Thomas on here because I talk a lot about acoustic guitars, but I love Strats. And I feel like he's the guy to talk to about Stratocasters, right?
He's the Strat guy, yeah. He's got like a small but awesome collection of his own. Obviously the 61, which is like his signature instrument, the iconic instrument that he's always pictured with. He's got an amazing 54. He's got a couple of other old ones, and he's got his vintage signatures, and of course the BluGuitar brand ones, which we build and sell as well, which are modeled after his original 61.
Yeah, I never tried it. I've seen them at the show. I've never tried them. Who Ninja says Andy and Henning have booked the flight for January. You better tell them change the date. All right, good question.
Oh no, I hope it's not going to be too expensive for them to change those flights. Like we'd already booked stuff for January, but we made sure everything we booked was refundable.
Wow.
So we're good.
I hadn't even thought about that.
If you hadn't done that, then it could be expensive.
That's horrible. That could ruin a company. Imagine you paid for everything and it wasn't refundable. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Good question. Would you consider the upcoming Amp X as a superior option to the current Spirit tech used in the H&K stuff?
Am I allowed to answer that? There was another comment which we should also
nice diversion, Rich. He's diverting the question.
Where was it? It's related to this. By the Guitar Lounge. I'm just going to read it. The guy on Know Your Gear, that's Phil McKnight, said he loved the H&K Spirit, but he stopped using it when he got an Amp 1. And now the law is saying, would you consider the upcoming Amp X as a superior option to the current Spirit tech used in the H&K stuff? Well, actually, Thomas was still at Hughes and Kettner when the Spirit amp technology was getting developed. So he had a hand in that, and the technology behind the Amp 1 is the Spirit stuff, but a bit different, but an evolution of that. So the Amp 1 technology is newer, and it's different, because obviously Hughes and Kettner has Bernd Schneider, who has been their engineer from day one, and Thomas would work with him. But the Amp 1 stuff has Thomas's extra kind of live professional musician's experience into it as well. And I would say the Spirit tech is amazing. The Amp 1 technology is amazing. It's a very personal decision on what performs and sounds better. For me personally, I use the Amp 1 at home, but I still have a Black Spirit, which I use in all my own videos and which I love. I think it's a great amp. I play a lot of clean stuff and I use a lot of pedals, and the Black Spirit 200 is perfect for me for that. So I would say both of them are great, but the Amp X is going to be, in terms of what it offers, it's going to smash everything else out of the park. H&K included, everything else included.
Bill Rand
the
says
biggest competition for the X is going to be modelers as opposed to analog.
No, I don't think so. I don't think modelers are anything like the Amp 1. That's why I like it. I like that
because it's a floor-based unit that looks like that. A lot of people assume, 1, that it's a modeler, 2, that it's purely digital.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's a big challenge to overcome.
The thing I like the most about the Amp 1 is that you can just plug it into a regular guitar cab. And that's what you can't do with a modeler. With a modeler, you're always listening to that mic'd up version, which is great when you're using in-ears. Don't get me wrong, I love it. And I love the if I could take the aux box out and use in-ears, I'd be very happy. But in the room, that cab is, for me, is 50% of the equation. So the fact that alone, I can't believe I can't just plug a guitar cab into like a Helix, or I guess you can with a Kemper, to be fair. But it still doesn't sound quite as good. I tried the Kemper powered cabinet, but it just doesn't work for me. It didn't sound. It sounded distant and didn't sound. I thought if anyone can do it, it's Kemper, right, with their imprints and everything. But it still didn't sound like plugging into a guitar amp. Really crazy.
No, they haven't quite nailed it. Yeah, for me, a lot of the modelers, well, in fact, all of them these days, they all sound good. They all sound like a great recording of a decent tube amp. But what they don't do is feel like it when you play them. It's just a different sensation under the fingers. It's slightly different, and they're getting so close. But all these companies still claim to be as good as the real thing. And if they have to do that, you know that the real thing is still the real thing for a reason. So
still the benchmark.
If you want it, just get the real thing. Everything else is not the real thing.
What makes me laugh is when they say, "Here's the new one. It's even more like the real thing." Like you said the last one. There's a picture on someone's Instagram that was flying around the internet, like the original Pod, and it was like sounds like a tube amp, but then there's the Helix, sounds like a tube amp, and then like every time they bring out a new version, they say it sounds like a tube amp, and because nothing really sounds like a tube. Now don't get me wrong, there are tube amps that don't sound good as well, and everything has its application, but I just think Thomas is onto that thing of plugging into a real. I don't know why everyone doesn't do that. Like, let us plug into an actual anything we want. Let us run in-ears with excellent stereo IRs. Let us plug into an actual cab and have it sound like an amp. That for me, that's the key. And by the way, everyone keeps telling me, well, everyone's using in-ears now. The gigs I do here in New York, they don't. You show up and you have to have an amp on stage. They don't have. Well, sometimes they have the option of in-ears or wedges. But a lot of gigs I do, we show up and we have to have our own thing to monitor ourselves with. So I don't want to use a PA speaker. I want a guitar cab behind me.
Yep.
Poo Ninja says, "I'll review anything. You want me to?" Yeah, we know that, Poo Ninja. Unfortunately, BluGuitar don't ship to space, so you're out of luck, my friend. This is a great question. Is this conversation in a minor key or a major key? I'd say it's in a mode of some kind.
Yeah, without having the theory to back this up, I'd say it was in a dominant seventh. Can that be a key? I don't know.
If you haven't got theory, you'd say it's in a demolished mode. We're just kidding, Sergio. Of course, it's a major key. It's always great to have friends on here and talk about gear, because at the end of the day, there's not really a right answer to a lot of this stuff. It's just our opinion and everything. But I do like talking about it. Mario, good to see you, buddy. The Guitar Lounge says it's very likely a Fender and the big companies don't go to NAMM. The dealers that have money will not go. That's the problem we were saying. If some companies pull out, then it diminishes the whole thing a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, if a company like Fender or Gibson pulls out and lots of dealers start saying, well, it's not worth going, then that adds to that domino effect, because more and more people will start not to do it. And the people who suffer in that scenario are the smaller companies and the smaller dealers. So I really think everybody should go. That's my gentle advice.
Yeah, it was interesting at Summer NAMM because Martin were the biggest presence there, but of course Chris Martin is the chair of NAMM, so that's obviously partly why as well. Alex says, I think mini TRS is actually the way to go. Neater wiring. I agree. I do like those cables, Alec, as long as they have the same functionality. But
yeah, me too.
Then again, what if you show up at a gig and they only have the regular size cable? I guess I think it's a bit like USB-C. It'd be great when everyone moves over to that. By the way, why doesn't Ampex have USB-C? I'm sure someone's asked you that before. Or does it have USB at all?
Thomas.
It does, right?
The Ampex is going to have USB capability. I'll let Thomas tell you about why, because I don't know. Okay. Is the short answer to that. But it will. It's always an issue that's come up in the past. It came up with Hughes and Kettner a lot as well. There were previous Hughes and Kettner amps like the the metal one, the core blade, which had USB keys, but it's like, that's outdated now.
Hughes and
People want
Kettner,
wireless.
Hughes and Kettner released like a small format amp like the amp one as well, didn't they? And then they have the Black Spirit floor unit that does allow you to plug in a speaker as well.
Yeah,
So
they have the Amp Man. Yeah, there was the Spirit Nano heads, which are these tiny little, like one-channel vintage rock and metal
the
ones.
Amp Man, yeah. The Amp
I was
Man's
still
like-
around for those. And then the Amp Man, which was the floor units, which I saw in pre-production, but I'd left before they were released.
Yeah.
And those are effectively like 2 channels of the Black Spirit in pedal form. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
The real thing was recommended the CS6 power supply, very low profile, and will do both HX Stomp and 18 volts. Oh, that's cool for my Kali 76. Have you got any thoughts on power supplies? Do you use one? Have you got a pedal board to use a power supply with?
Yeah, I'm in between boards at the moment, and I'm
I think we
using
all are.
I'm using cheap daisy chain stuff at the moment. I've just got a Boss daisy chain thing that I use for a couple of overdrives at the moment, but when it comes to building the big board again, it will just have to be a decent, big, isolated jobby. I had a Palmer. What are they called? Can I see it? Is it in the room somewhere? No, a Palmer MS-10 or 12 or something, which is a pretty decent mid-priced one, but it's probably not the same quality as a Chox or anything like that.
Choosing the right size pedal board and choosing the right power supply is just a total nightmare. Because there's so many options.
Yep.
There's so many options. You don't want to have to like change the size of it later on. And they do these ones that extend and everything. And you think, well, yeah, but then I'd rather just get one that will, in the good case. It's just, that is the downside of a pedal board. And then you're always going to want to change it at the end of the day. So.
But it's also the beauty of being a guitar player, because there's so much choice.
Yes, it's also very expensive. The Guitar Lounge says the guy I Know Your Gear said he loved the H&K Spirit, but stopped at using it. That's our buddy Phil McKnight. Yep, he likes.
Yeah,
the
that was
one.
Phil exactly. Yeah, he loved the Black Spirit, and he was one of the guys who came to us in Germany for one of the Spirit Con weeks that we did. But yeah, he loves the Amp X as well, and is a pretty cool advocate for it.
Bill Rand says, with an HX effects or a few pedals, a nice AC30 preamp pedal in the effects loop, I don't need the X. So there you go. Yeah, I will. I'll definitely try that. I was going to make a board that could either be run. I wanted to put a effects loop on it, so I could either run it straight into a clean amp, or into an effects loop of an amp. Right, super versatile. That's what I wanted to build. But then it just gets more and more complicated, and more things to go wrong. But I think it'd be cool to run a pedal board straight into the clean channel of the amp one. That would be cool. But like I said, I would get the X just for the fact I can run IRs out of it into the front of house as well, because I do like that when you have the IR options. And from what he's saying, from what Thomas is saying, the IRs would be really good. Thomas Moore, do you have the HX effect? Bill Rand have the M9 and Pod Go. Yeah, I just want to make a board. I want the option of having, like I said, like the HX effects is a great all-in-one, but I don't like the looper. I want to get one of those UA delay pedals, and I want to have my own effects on it, and then go from there.
I sometimes think that like having an HX effects or having something slightly smaller like the M9 would be perfect for me to cover all the effects that I would only use once or twice in a set or something like that.
Yeah.
Modulation effects, for example, I hardly ever use them, but I might sometimes want a chorus or a phaser or something. And if I had them all in one unit, that could be perfect.
HX Stomp, I was going to throw that at the end just in case I need a chorus. I'll just put it on there. And also that will work as a MIDI controller. So you can make a preset which is like if you've got an amp with MIDI. So if you programmed amp 1, you could actually do clean, crunch, and lead from the Stomp, because that could be basically a MIDI controller. So that would be a great kind of jack of all trades pedal at the end. That's what I was going to do. But it uses a lot of power, so you've got to get a power supply that will power it. So yeah, that's what I said. Poo Ninja says, got to have clean crunch and a high gain solo, touch of verb and tap, tempo, delay and loop. But yeah, exactly. That's basically all I want. I think that's what a lot of people want. I don't know. Some of these products do so many things. And then when I got my tube amps, I was like, I'm happy just to plug straight into a tube amp with a nice clean sound and play it all night. And then with the
That's
modelers,
one of the issues I
I'll
have
just mess
with
around.
some of the modelers. Like
Yeah.
Vlad and me, we were talking about it must have been the new Fractal FM9 on the Cat Pick Friday show, and we were saying it has
You can
200
change
different
everything. Yeah.
cabinet simulations. It has 300 different IRs or something. It has 1,000 different effects. And I'm just thinking, well, what am I actually going to play? I'll spend hours literally cycling through
Well, you
different
do.
speaker simulations
You do.
before coming back to the first one, and then change something else, and then I'll need to change the speaker. And at that point, you just kind of think, well, why don't I just have a single channel amp with nothing else on it, which I just have to play?
I used to have a Dr. Z. And it was just a great, like, clean channel, small amp, and I just plugged a pedal board into it. You know, multi-channel amps are nice as well, and things like that. I mean, one thing with the amp one, I want true control over each channel. You know, I want treble, middle, and bass on every one. I just the tone control for me isn't quite enough at times. So that's why the modelers can be good. But yeah, I swear that I said to someone the other day, if I'd spent the last 5 years that I've been tweaking modelers and trying different plugins and things and just practice the guitar, I'd be a much better musician for sure. And I would have been much happier as well. I can't believe the times I've tried to get a great clean sound from a modeler. And it's like, yeah, I can get it okay, but you just plug into a great Fender and it's like, wow, there it is, you know. I know, they're limited. It doesn't do other stuff, I know.
What's your opinion on the Fender Tone Master?
I haven't tried one. I kind of want to get one. I'd love to get the Twin and the Tone Master Twin and put them against each other. I did hear a recording on Henning's channel where he did distortion through both of them, and I thought I could hear that. It's just not the same. But why is it not the same? And why is the amp one more? Why is it so much closer? I mean, essentially, I'll save this for Thomas when he's on here, but I mean, it's still a smaller unit. It's got to be solid state to some degree, right? I know there's a tube in there.
Yeah.
But that gets so close. You think that the Tone Master stuff would get really close. I need to try it. I need to try the Tone Master stuff. But whenever I try solid state stuff, I'm always let down, and it's annoying. That's why the amp one is a bit of a curveball for me, because it does sound much more authentic than those other ones.
Yeah.
So it must be possible. Yeah, I want to try the Tone Master. I know Phil McKnight tried it and he liked it, but for me, sometimes I wonder if it's just me. Like we started the show by saying that I'm fussy, or I'm what was the word?
Picky.
Not fussy, picky. No, there was another word as well. But I just
A snob.
a snob. That's it. Yeah. But you just hear something, and sometimes I wonder: is it because I played tube amps when I was younger that I have that in my mind now? Because some people will say, "Oh, so and so sounds better than the real thing, just like the real thing," but I don't. And you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. It's all about plugging into that thing and actually trying it. But that's a very expensive experiment, isn't it, with gear?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to try the Tone Master. I like the approach. I like the fact that it looks like a tube amp. All the power is going into just that one thing. Like on paper, that's really clever. Like I want the thing behind me to look like a regular cab, right? I don't want a cab with like Yamaha written all over it. I want it to look like really fit in. I think that Fender should make the Tone Master amp, which is just for modelers, you know? So you can have like a Kemper on the floor, but it goes into that, so everyone thinks you're playing. Then again, isn't that kind of weird that we're trying to trick people visually into what does it really matter? I don't know. It's such a
metal
thing.
bands have been tricking people for decades now with, stacks and stacks of empty 4x12s on stages and stuff. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah, but I said to someone the other day, I had this thought, imagine you have the wall of empty cabs up and they're using a Kemper, but imagine if they're actually using the amps, but they're charging Kemper to say they're using the Kemper, but they're actually using the amps. They could go full circle again.
Oh, you never know. Some very clever musicians could be doing that.
It's all get out of hand. How is the HX Effects? Been thinking about one to replace my M9 but still use it. Podgo isn't great front of amp. Yeah, I think HX Effects works well with the amp one, doesn't it? I think I've seen Thomas talk about it.
Yeah.
That's a good option.
Yeah, we have a few videos. I think Dr. McFarland might be in one of our Academy of Tone videos because he's a Helix expert. So if you search out Academy of Tone, HX Effects, 4-cable method on YouTube. You'll find some information on that.
Yep.
It sounds pretty good, I think.
You're right, he did. But don't discount the little stomp with 3 buttons, because you can still add a 2-button foot switch to it, and you could use that with other pedals.
Yeah, you can.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
For me, the HX Effects is still kind of too big. Pooh Ninja. Thomas Moore, I'd try an Amp 1. Yes, you should. It's very good. I like the Mercury one. Get the Mercury one. Unless you play metal, then get the black one. Pooh Ninja says, our last 10% improvement has been improved. Another 30%. Wait, I don't know what he's talking about as usual. HX Effects and Amp 1. Yes, a lot of people use that rig. It's a good rig because the HX Effects can change the channels and control the Amp 1 over MIDI and add the other effects that you want as well. And the cool thing with Amp 1 is that it can go on the pedal board. So the wiring can all be on the pedal board. I really hate the 4-cable method, running all the cables to the amp. I hate all that stuff. You can just, if you mount the Amp 1 to the board, you can wire it all up on the board and just send that straight into a cab. That's really cool.
Yep, exactly.
So it is still a viable option. And you've got all the EQ and stuff in there as well. Pooh Ninja says Black Spirit Floor looks cool. Yes, it does. I've never tried one. It does look cool.
It is a good amp. It's exactly the same as the head and the combo. It has a couple of tiny extra little features, but nothing major. Good amp.
Sergio says, will Boss RC10R work in sync on MIDI? Well, will the Amp X have MIDI clock? That's a good question. Do you know?
I don't know.
don't
That's
know.
something Thomas will have to answer, but I assume so.
Yeah, MIDI clock is nice because then you can sync all the MIDI things up together. But actually,
Yeah, exactly. I'm assuming he's thought of that.
But I was looking at I love UA, so I was looking at the UA delay pedal. It doesn't have MIDI. I'm like, well, that's annoying. But on the other hand, I just want something simple. If you have to tap in on 2 pedals, is that the end of the world? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
I was very surprised that those UA pedals didn't have that option for the price they are. But there we go. It's a different story.
They should have put that in there. That's why Real Team just has a Kemper for the last 8 years. Yes, but you just built a pedal board, so you're as bad as we are. Chocks. I know, Chocks makes me hungry. It's not good for my belly if I get a Chocks power supply. He's using a Harley Benton power plant. Sometimes it's quite nice, sometimes not. Fender just made power supplies look really cool too. You see those new Fender power supplies?
Yeah.
They look really nice. They look really nice. It's just long. You got to figure out, will it fit under the board that I get?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I agree with Aaron. 2021 has been the year of the actual pedal board for me. After years of modelers, it's a nice jaunt, but yes, a nightmare with power and cabling. Yeah, I agree. But once it's done, it's really quite awesome. I like the one spot, small and simple. Yeah, I like those too, but they can be noisy.
Yeah.
Pooh Ninja, I think it'd be cool to have a 9.8 volt on the Amp X to power. That's a great idea, to have a slave power rack.
It will have that. I know that, and it will have it. So you'll be able to power external pedals from the Amp X directly.
See, I could still add so if I get the UA delay and love it, I can still put it on that and use it with it. That's what I like about that.
And you won't need another power supply, exactly.
Right. One question I asked you in the stream last week when you were live, I said, is it going to have a looper? I don't think it will have a looper, right?
It will.
It will? Wow.
I don't recollect answering that question.
You didn't answer any of my questions that week. Yeah, thanks.
Apologies. We must have been busy. But yeah, the Amp X will have a looper in it.
That's why I get people on my show, so I can just ask all those questions that I don't get answered in their streams. Would love to try. Everyone wants to try the Tone Master. So now you've got me wanting to get a Tone Master.
I'd love to try one too, but I've just, they came out during the pandemic, and I just haven't got a music shop near me that I can go to try one. So,
but like I said, what you want, because I have the Princeton. They don't make a Princeton yet. I think they might be making one, from what I've heard. But what I would want is the Deluxe Reverb and the Deluxe Reverb Tone Master, and I would compare them both against each other. That's what I need to do. That would really tell me, because I love the look, I love the IR out, I love the attenuator, I love everything about it, but it has to sound. If we're just talking about saving like £10 or £20 in weight, I'd rather just take the amp. Have to sound as good. And a lot of people won't really say if it does or not, and that like we said about reviews earlier. But then again, some of it is just personal, so I'd have to check it out myself. I didn't want to know how many hours I've wasted tone building on presets. Exactly. And do you know how much money I've spent on presets and Kemper profiles that I just didn't like at all? Probably $1,000. I'm not doing that anymore. I think they should at least let you preview these things, because every guitar and player is different, and even the thing you're monitoring through is different. I wish they would let you actually preview like a profile before you buy it. I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's what is in planning for the blueprints. So there will be kind of packs that you'll be able to buy for the Ampex, different styles of amp or different effects or whatever, and we're working on a way to get it that you will be able to kind of get free trials of them for a day or a week or whatever.
I think that's really
but
important.
That is hard to do. That is really tricky to
No,
design. And
I know. But what happened with me is I bought a load of Helix presets and Kemper profiles, and I never ended up using any of them. And one day I sat and looked at the folder on my desktop, and I just felt sick. I was like, that's like $1,000 there. Like, why can't I try them first before I, So yeah. I'm glad you're doing that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Thomas Moore says, my small board has a TU2, Plimsoll, Timmy, EP Boost. This sounds good. Phase 95, Boss C2 Waza, carbon copy, and one spot. Nice.
That's a great board.
Yeah.
What are we missing? Just a decent reverb.
Yeah, maybe I guess the amp has reverb, right? I like one row of pedals and have the pedal train mini, but want the Metro so I can squeeze another pedal. I have the classic pedal train classic junior. I don't want to carry it around. Yeah, I have one I was using my acoustic board. I'm just going to use that. It's like a square. It's got like 2 rows on it. I'm just going to get a power supply for that for now. Start with that. Sergio says the store had a stand with called Volta mod. Oh yeah, Volta. Volto. Possible to create music real time. You know those I'm thinking about Pedal Train Volta. Sorry, that was a weird product because they kept re-releasing it every couple of years, a different color. And
was that the power supply?
Yeah, no, Sergio's not talking about that, but it just made me think of that because we're talking about pedal boards.
Oh, what okay, yeah.
They made
They're
like
the mini synths, aren't they? The Volcas, yeah.
I haven't tried those, Sergio, but the power supplies they made like a white one, then a green one, and then there's another. I think the Rock board have them a spin off of that as well. I'm like, why do you keep re-releasing the same product, different color? Like, what was wrong with the last one? Danielle, how you doing? The guitar amp I now use is a DV Mark Little Jazz. Only has a volume, 3-tone, and 1 reverb. Emitting weight is a factor. I'm very happy with the simplicity. Yeah, a lot of people like those DV Mark amps. I think they're solid state, aren't they? I haven't tried. A friend of mine had one. He had the Frank Gambardi signature. I haven't tried them. But yeah, you know what? If you find something that works for you, then just use it and don't look anywhere else. That's my advice.
Because tone is personal. If it sounds good to you, it is good. Don't let anybody else tell you any different.
Yeah.
Apart from all the YouTubers who try and sell you stuff.
Real Ting says the pedal board is... I know, I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding. Come on. Poo Ninja says Toman keeps teasing the Stompenberg. What? Oh, lets you try any pedal. Really? Oh,
yeah, have you seen that? It's like
is that real?
It's like a digital thing which you're supposed to be able to, in real time, test any effects pedal by twisting the knobs and stuff. Are you familiar with Tonepedia? I'm asking you and Poo Ninja because Tonepedia is a real website where you can actually do that. So try Tonepedia out.
Oh, wow. I know like Cole Clark guitars have a thing now where you can choose the guitar and the pickup and change the settings and listen to it. I think that stuff is really clever. Yeah,
it's like those dudes at Tonepedia. They'll get one guitar or one pedal and the guy will have to record 8,000 different riffs on all the different settings and stuff, but that's cool. It's kind of fun, but
I'll check that out.
I've never bought a piece of gear based on that, and I think that's what Stompenberg is supposed to be, but it never works for me either.
There's nothing like getting that thing and trying it with your playing in your room with your guitar, right? And that's the problem at the end of the day, isn't it, with all the videos and stuff. They're fun and they're interesting and they're great, but there's nothing like actually trying. And that's why music stores are still important. There's nothing like just playing it yourself. Especially with a guitar. Yeah. Especially with a guitar. Like, because the guitar you buy might be different to the one that the YouTuber had. But it's cool. It's a cool idea. Sergio says, what's the best tube head for a home studio? All I can say is, if you've got a home studio, I highly recommend that Oxbox thing is incredible. So check out the Oxbox to plug your head into. And then the best head, I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I mean...
I think there is no one answer to that.
Yeah.
And if you were looking for like a one answer, you would be looking at like one of the big Rev ones, the generator perhaps.
Yeah, I want to try that too.
Maybe one of the massive Mesa Boogie multi-channel beasts that can do everything from super clean to super metally. But you also have to answer the question like, is my home studio one where I'm using a mic'd cabinet? Is it one where I can be loud? Or is it one where I'm literally going to be plugging my tube head into my audio interface on my PC and just recording with that? Because, you know, for me, you could go from anything as small as a Rev D20, which is just a mini clean tube head that you can run straight into your computer, through to a massive thing that has a 4x12 cabinet in a quiet room in an ISO box with 3 different microphones stuck on it. So that, if I could have any amp, I'd have a Rev now. I think
that new Rev with like 3 channels IR, so you don't actually need the aux box for that. You've got IR outs, you've got 3 channels, you've got a boost. I think you got reverb, everything apart from delay. I was thinking if they put delay in that as well, I wouldn't need anything else. But it is a big head. It's very big and very heavy, even as a head itself. So
yeah, it's huge. But the Rev stuff sounds amazing.
Yeah, again, something else I'd like to check out. Who Ninja says music stores have some special secret sauce that makes stuff sound better in store. Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I agree with the acoustic room. The acoustic rooms. Someone said on my Martin show that when you go to the acoustic room and play a guitar, all the other acoustic guitars ring out. They all vibrate and ring out as well, so that can happen. Yeah, but I don't know about everything else. Maybe just because it's a bigger room, it would make sense. I just got a capture.
Yeah, when I go in a music store, I play so badly that I know that any piece of gear is going to sound better when I get home. So there you go.
Real Thing said I got a captor for using my beloved THD tube heads at home. Yeah, I've got a Captor X. I've got a Captor X. That's good too. But the aux, I don't know. The aux is all the UA stuff is just excellent. But like I said, I would sooner take the Captor X to a gig than I would the aux because it's so. I don't know why it's so big. I don't know why they can't make a smaller one that goes on a pedal board because that thing sounds really good, but they don't.
I'm guessing they will at some point.
There we go. Yeah, the Gen 120. Yeah, definitely. But it's like I said, it's big, but it kind of does everything. Just add a nice delay to that, and you're good to go. Yeah. You even plug it straight into your interface and record. All right. Well, that's the end of the questions, and I think we'll start to wrap it up. But I didn't plan on going this long, Rich, but I'm glad that we did. I really enjoyed it. And
I hope I didn't waffle too much.
No, it was perfect.
I do have a tendency to do that. Good.
It was perfect. And like I said, it was all the questions were for you. If you asked me questions as well, we'd been here for 4 hours. So I'll come on your channel in a few weeks. So where can people find your channel and subscribe to that?
They can find me at the link in your description, which links to my channel, Rich Words Music. So if you just type Rich Words Music into YouTube, you will find me. I'm on YouTube and I do have an Instagram page, but I don't do much on it. Drop me a follow though if you're on there. Why not?
And I posted the link to the channel earlier on in the chat, so I hope they saw it there as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I'll put it down below in the description when we're finished. Real Ting says, I have to say I use my Katana and Waza Airs at home more than anything else. Minimal tweaking, just play. Yeah, I got a Katana amp because of him, and I was really impressed with it. But I guess I am a snob because I got rid of it, and now I'm going down other paths. Oh dear, I think I'll end it on that note. So thanks for watching. Today was a special. I'm usually live Mondays, Thursdays and Sundays at 4 p.m. EST. This weekend there will be no Thursday or Sunday show because I'm gigging, but next week and from then on I'm usually live on Mondays, Thursdays and Sundays, and with the occasional special. Hopefully I'll be on Richard's show soon in a few weeks' time, and hopefully we'll get Thomas Blug on here to talk about Stratocasters and his thoughts on amplifiers. That would be really great. So I'll ask Richard to pass that. I'll ask Richard to pass that message along to Thomas. And yeah, if you're new here, please subscribe and ring the bell so you see when I go live or make a new video. Thanks to Poo Ninja. Poo Ninja usually leaves before the end, but he's been here for the whole show. Look at that. He must be a fan. Rich Words Music. It's full of great demos. There you go. He's a fan.
Oh, that's so kind.
And Rosanna, thank you for moderating. Luckily, there's no trolls today. We were good. Thanks, Aaron and Richard. Very interesting. Have a great evening and afternoon. We'll leave it there. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your week. And we'll see you in a future video. Thanks, Richard. I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you better after all this time. It's been really great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.